Here we go. 6 days of research boiled down to one video. Some of you might be wondering, why are we doing 700,000 years of Egypt's history? Do we even have that much history? Because we are about to cover human evolution from a people who can barely use fire all the way to current day, and I mean today. Like I said, I spent 6 days, and I mean 6 solid days researching this video, so let's do this. The year is 700,000 BC, give or take 500,000 years. Humankind is not really humankind yet. We have so many different versions of archaic humans like Homo heidelbergensis, Homo naledi, Homo floresiensis. It gets so confusing that they call this period the muddle in the middle. And they call it that because we're not even sure exactly who evolved from who's the ancestor of who, but we know that during this period, Homo sapiens, us, is when we first jump on the scene. Now, to speak to Egypt, the climate was vastly different than it is today. For example, the dry desert climate that we know today that is nearly uninhabitable was actually very lush, green, somewhat Serengeti climate. Early versions of giraffes and gazelles ran not through just the Nile, but all throughout Egypt, and humans went in and out as they went in and out of Africa through Egypt. But no one really settled in Egypt because during this time, there was no farming, there was no cattle, there was nothing like that. We were all hunter-gatherers, so you went wherever the food went, and life was poop. The tools that they had were primitive at best, and your life expectancy was like 35 years. You died through, oh, let's go get some water at the river. Oh, you got killed by a crocodile. There was no cities, there was just chaos. Bro, these people didn't have groups past like 25. Your band of people that you traveled with was 25 people, and none of you lived past 35. Like, what? Anyways, people are going in and out of Egypt, but no one's really making a huge settlement or making a dent in the population in Egypt at this time. But let's fast forward to 10,000 BC or 15,000 BC. None of this is exact at this point, but you start to get a demographic called the Natufians.
Natufians, baby. Oh yeah.
The Natufians come from the east, around the Levant region, and what you begin to see is the beginning of farming. Hello, Editing Meta here with an important caveat. I'm not a historian. Take everything I say in this video with a grain of salt and know that it is a gross oversimplification of so much that happens. I'm already missing so many people who had important aspects to Egyptian culture, but just know this. This changes the game, as you can expect. People don't have to chase food and be hunter-gatherers anymore, but they can actually calm down and settle places, make a home. And that's exactly what happens in Egypt. These Natufians start harvesting grain. They start domesticating animals, and life gets a lot easier for humans during Egypt in this period. You have activities like making makeup, which starts to come on the scene. Like they would take the mineral malachite and then mix it with animal lipids like fats and then use it as eye makeup, which is cool. And for the genetic nerds, actually Natufian is what makes the majority of the current Egyptians' DNA. One of the people that helped me with this video has, I think, 33% Natufian in his DNA, which is very typical for Egyptians. Quick side note, a key thing to remember about the genetics of this region during this time around 10,000 BC is that the human population is tiny. We're talking about like 2,000 people, less than 2,000 people in the entire Egypt area. What this means is that early migration patterns that would go in and out of Egypt, people would come in and out, they actually had a huge impact on the genetic makeup of current Egyptians. But what later happens, and you'll see, is that the population goes from 2,000 Egyptians to 1 million Egyptians very quickly. And what happens is that new people that come in and out of Egypt, conquerors, immigrants, whatever, start to mix, but it really doesn't change the makeup of Egyptians because the population is so massive compared to the rest of the world. Anyways, during this period, a lot of different demographics come in and out of Egypt, from Africa, from the Levant, from Arabia. So you start to get a picture of what Egyptians look like, right, during 10,000 BC. But let's fast forward to Egypt, or Predynastic Egypt, of 6,000 BC. Life starts to get kind of dope. Pottery becomes much more common, which means that you can have storage of food, but more importantly, beer, which is super dope. And because of this, you also start to get division of labor. You start to get someone who's designated as the brewer of the village, or someone who's designated as the tool maker of the village. Things start to get a lot more civilized. Oh, I hate that term, civilized, but civilized. During this period of Egypt, the population grows rapidly. The villages or tribes of Egypt are starting to grow, and they get around to 150 people, all the way to some of them get as big as 5,000 people. And naturally, you start to get the development of different cultures throughout Egypt. Some of these cultures include, and I'm going to butcher all these names, the Merimnd culture, El Omari culture, the Mahdi culture, Amratian culture, Gerzean culture. But during this time, you also start to see the division of Upper and Lower Egypt, which is very exciting because that's going to persist for the entire Egyptian history until today. Now, this might get confusing for some people, but Upper Egypt refers to actually South Egypt, like Luxor, Gena, while North Egypt is actually called Lower Egypt. And the reason being is because in Ethiopia, the Nile begins and it runs from the south all the way to the north. So this shaped early Egyptians' perception of what north and south was, upper and lower. But anyways, the Lower Egypt and the Upper Egypt unify, and they start to have each king designated to ruling them until we have Dynastic Egypt.
Dynastic Egypt.
Whoa, what a crazy first episode. And did you hear the guy in the video also scored all the music too? What an absolute legend. Next episode, we will be covering Dynastic Egypt, which is very exciting, trust me. Make sure to like and subscribe and Venmo me or Cash App me $1.